I have a good news story for you, especially if you live in Michigan. Especially if you live in Michigan. We've talked before about the right to work. So I want to take you back to a time years ago when there was actually the right to work bill was passed in Michigan. Things have changed today, which will be good news for those of you that are employees in Michigan, particularly those of you that belong to unions. Now, this video here, this was 11 years ago when ABC News reported this change in Michigan. And then I'm going to show you the good news that happened this week.
That showdown raging in the heartland of the United States, perhaps no place in America more closely associated with unions than the state of Michigan. And today, thousands of union workers descended on the Capitol to protest a new law they believe could be an ominous signal for unions and worker paychecks everywhere. Here's ABC's Alex Perez.
The anger boiling over. Officers turning to pepper spray to control the crowd, at least 10,000 deep. But it wasn't enough. Michigan Republican lawmakers approving landmark legislation lifting the requirement that workers in unionized workplaces pay union dues.
An army of officers in riot gear have been guarding the governor's office all day. Some of these demonstrators have been here since 5 o'clock this morning.
The Republican governor has signed the law.
To have him with a stroke of a pen take our rights away is offensive.
Supporters call it right to work, but unions say it's nothing less than an effort to cut their bargaining power. Less dues means less influence. The AFL-CIO says that the average worker in right-to-work states earns $1,500 less than workers in states without those laws.
So that piece right there is very important because oftentimes you hear that phrase right to work and it sounds like a positive thing, but what does that really mean, really, especially considering which state you live in? So right to work in Michigan, rules could be different from right to work in Massachusetts, for example. So what they found is that the right to work states, these workers were earning $1,500 less per year. So yeah, you have the right to work, but they were receiving less benefits. So when Michigan actually changed this law and made Michigan that right to work state, when that bill passed, the reason why people were out there protesting is they said, no, that means we're going to receive less benefits now. Again, this was 11 years ago.
These so-called right to work laws, they don't have to do with economics. They have everything to do with politics. What they're really talking about is giving you the right to work for less money.
But supporters say the law encourages business. Chris Beckering owns a construction company and predicts the bill will allow his company to hire more workers.
This will attract more businesses to Michigan. Those businesses will need space, and we're here to build it for them.
What's remarkable about what happened today is that it happened in Michigan, the heart of union country, home of the United Auto Workers. Now Michigan will become the 24th right-to-work state.
Okay. So that was when Michigan became the 24th right to work state. But notice what the gentleman said there at the end. He said, well, this will be great for the businesses because I can actually hire more people. Well, yeah, if you're giving the employees less benefits, of course, you're going to have more money to be able to hire more people. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. It's like, I could have more workers if I give you less benefits. That's really what he's saying. However, big change this week. Shout out to the peeps who live in Michigan. From More Perfect Union made this announcement. Today, Michigan is officially no longer a right to work state. Michigan is now the first state in nearly 60 years to ditch the union busting law. Public school workers can now collectively bargain. It's easier for unions to build power, and billionaires are furious. I don't know how many of you in the chat or if any of you in the chat live in Michigan, but let's give a shout out to the peeps in Michigan. And they also go on to say here, learn more about this huge win and the great organizing that made it happen. And they're going back here to February 21st, 2023. And there's this video here. I already showed you the union fight there. But again, guys, this took years, right? It says the ability of public school teachers to collectively bargain was won through separate legislation, another great move among a host of Democratic victories since the party swept into power across Michigan legislature and governorship. So this is another example of local wins, right? Things that are actually happening on the local level. These are things I feel like we need to put more emphasis and more time into. That's why I cover the ballot initiatives on this show, because I want to show you what you can get done at the local level. When it comes to the national level, we don't really have control over that other than to vote out our congressmen, right? Vote out our representatives. But we don't really have control in reference to what the president does in the United States, right? But on the local level, some of these fights have been won. Now, I do want to show you guys, if you're not aware, what this actually meant. Michigan right to work repeal, what workers and businesses need to know. So let's come down here. And this actually was released on Valentine's Day, yesterday. I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger because I don't like the small font. Here we go. Michigan workplaces are no longer governed by the right to work law, as the repeal took effect Tuesday of the decade-long regulation that allowed workers to opt out of paying dues in union-represented jobs, but still receive benefits. Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed the law on March 24th, 2023, months after Democrats won control of the governor's office, state Senate, and state House in November 2022 election. Repealing the law became one of the early policy priorities as Democrats eyed taking control of the legislature. The repeal passed along party lines in the House and in the Senate. The law is one of 142 that took effect on Tuesday, 3 months after the legislature adjourned. The repeal didn't get enough support to take effect immediately. So here's what you need to know. The law was approved by Republicans in a lame duck session in 2012. It banned requirements that workers join unions in order to receive their benefits. Democrats, who were backed heavily by unions, including the Michigan Education Association and the UAW, said the repeal prioritizes workers and labor rights. Right to work has negatively impacted the state. That's coming from House Speaker Joe Tate in Detroit. Now, what do both sides say? Labor groups argue right to work hurts workers' ability to organize by reducing dues for unions who need money to organize groups of employees. They also claim that wage growth is lower in states with right to work laws, which critics say is the goal of right to work. So you guys hear this? Critics say the goal of right to work is to make sure that they have lower wages. So that's important to know. Business advocates say the law helped economic development in Michigan, making it more attractive to national site selectors who evaluate locations for new business. When Democrats announced their intent to repeal the law, Michigan was one of the nation's 27 right-to-work states, many of which compete with the state for large-scale electric vehicle battery manufacturing, such as Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and North Carolina. Now, who is affected by the change? Only private sector employees. The repeal did not address the public sector. However, few changes are expected. Businesses that are union shops continue to partner with unions, and only a small percentage of union workers opt out of paying dues, the Detroit Chamber said on Tuesday. So, big news there for people who are in Michigan,